Example 3. In our previous example, our family decides to play the game. Each night they agree to use the tetrahedral die each night to randomly determine if the game will be a board game or a card game. The tree diagram mapping shows the possible overall outcomes for 2 consecutive nights as follows. So this was our tree diagram from example 1 that we created. But how would our diagram change if you were interested in mapping the possible overall outcomes over 3 consecutive nights? To accommodate this additional stage, you would take steps similar to what we did before, and we would attach all possibilities for the third stage Wednesday to each branch of the previous stage on Tuesday. So I'm going to start my tree diagram off by labeling. So I have Monday, I have Tuesday, and now we're going to add in Wednesday, and then we're going to have a new outcome list. All right, so I know that we are either going to be playing a board game or a card game. So then, just like our previous one, we're going to branch off from each of those options with our other 2 options. So now when we add in this third column, we just continue on our branches. So we could have a board game or a card game, board game or card game. When we do these trees, it's helpful to leave yourself room. Think about how many branches you're going to have to draw, because if not, they get, card game, sorry, so that they don't get squished. Okay, so now to make our outcome list, again, we're going to start at the top and work down through each branch. So we'd have board game, board game, board game. So B, B, B. Board game, card game. Board, B, C. Board game, card game, board game. Board game, card game, card game. We could have a card game, board game, C, B, B, card, board, card, card, board, card, 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 board, or 3 nights of card games. Alright, so our question says, if BBB represents 3 straight nights of board games, what does CBB represent? So this would represent a card game, a board game, and then another board game. So card game, board game, board game. List all outcomes where exactly 2 board games were played over 3 days. So we're going to go through our outcome list. This is more than 2. This has 2 board games, so B, B, C. This has 2 board games, so B, C, B. This only has 1 board game. This one has 2 board games, C, B, B. This only has 1 board game, only 1 board game, no board games. So how many outcomes were there? There were 3 outcomes. And then our last question. There are 8 possible outcomes representing the 3 nights. Are the 8 outcomes representing the 3 nights equally likely? Why or why not? So if we think about these different outcomes, is it equally likely that we will have the same outcome for each? So if we think back to that first example, the family only chose a card game if one of the numbers showed up. I don't know if it was 1 or 4. Let me see, it was 1. So we only have a 1/4 chance of getting the card game, whereas we would have 3/4 of a chance of getting the board game. So we would say no, because the chance of getting a card game was only 1 out of 4. And the chance, oh, helps if I can spell right, huh? Chance of getting a board game was 3 out of 4. So the probabilities were not the same.